yes. Oh, you know what that sound means. It's time for In the Paddock F1. Greeny and the cheese. Weeks delay because of the crazy weather up there in the Emilia-Romagna region. Our thoughts and prayers go out to them. But this week, we're back racing. And we're back at the Jewel. On the F1 calendar, the most famous principality in the world. That's right, it's Monaco, baby. The glitz, the glamour, the multi-million-dollar yachts, supercars, models, oh, those parties, and the casino at the top of the hill. As we model Greentopia after. Thank you very much. That's right, on the banks of the Mediterranean Sea, we race the famous Monaco Street Circuit, 2.07 miles, around those 18 famous corners. Some of those are Sandevote, Massenet, Casino Square, the Hairpin, Portier, the Tunnel, Tabac, and of course Rascas, to name a few. You give it the full beans for just about 45% of your lap. And after one of the most ridiculous and probably best qualifyings I can remember in quite some time in Monaco, the race didn't really disappoint. A little bit of a typical start, but then the rains came and the fun began. Slipping and sliding all over. Max conquered it all to take the win. Alonso second. Esteban Ocon in the Alpine gets up there in third. We're caffeinated. We're medicated. Greeny. Good evening, sir.
Oh, it's a good evening, all right. It's beautiful. It was Memorial Day weekend here in the States. Got to hang out, got to go to New York City yesterday. That was all good. Today is Stonehenge, Manhattan. Do you know what Stonehenge, Manhattan is?
I do, sir.
So I will be going tomorrow to Manhattan to watch these Stonehenge Manhattans where the sun sets on the grid. So it's a spectacular sunlight show. It'll happen again on July 12th, but also today and tomorrow. So, but enough about New York City, enough about lights and sunsets. We got Monaco. And yes, you said the casino at that top of that hill. It was a wild weekend. You had every kind of weather possible. I guess that's the theme for 2023 and beyond, having all four seasons. It did everything but snow this weekend over in Monaco. And here we are. We had a wild qualifying. I mean, Q3 was probably the highlight of the entire weekend. And you had a crazy race. You had a lot of mistakes, a lot of unforced errors. Things could have been very different if I think drivers and teams, were a little more on the ball. But I think it was a surprise. It seemed in the post-race interviews that it was a surprise to everyone. They were all a little caught off guard with that rain, and it rained indeed. And we had a race. We had an interesting race in Monaco on a Sunday. We had a little bit of passing, but not much. And here we are. Max Verstappen wins again. Again, Red Bull has won every single race this season. They continue to do so. And the ageless wonder, Fernando Alonso, with the mistake, with the big error of coming in 2 laps in a row to change those tires from the mediums to the intermediates, I believe, 2 laps in a row. So he survived that, still finished second. George Russell had that penalty at the end there and kind of went off track there at turn 5 towards the end of the race. That was his complete just mental mistake by him, as he admitted after the race. And here we are. 1, 2, 3. And of course, Esteban Ocon. Of course, you got to be pumped for Alpine. They had a great weekend. He had a surprising weekend as well. Finished third in quali, third on the grid, and finished there. 1, 2, 3. Max, Fernando, and Esteban started 1, 2, 3. Finished 1, 2, 3. There's your podium. No Ferraris on podium. We had no Imola. It's been a crazy week, man. I mean, that was a crazy 10 days of Formula One. I've talked a lot, so give me your thoughts about not just this weekend, but the last really 10 days, 2 weeks of Formula One.
Well, as I said, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody in the Emilia-Romagna region there in Italy, because we've seen that stuff here in the States. Massive flooding. I mean, you had to cancel the weekend. You had to. There's no way. So as I said, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. But just another, just actually a phenomenal weekend in Monaco, in my opinion. Usually it's pretty boring. Quality is pretty much the peak of it all, really, since the cars are just so big now that there's not as much passing. But it's always hard to pass at Monaco anyway. But quality was absolutely fantastic, exciting all the way through. Awful weekend for Sergio.
Awful.
Awful. That might have
Did you
just
like
blew
to
his
say
title.
god awful putrid?
Yeah, I was god awfully putrid.
I
Disaster in
didn't
quality.
steal your thunder there.
That's all right. That's all right. That was god awful putrid to be. That was just awful. Trash in the car, then race just absolute debacle for him. Probably lost the title, the shot at the title championship right there. That was probably it. That's a massive blow. Max absolutely dominant. That final sector in quali was beyond brilliant. Going into that sector down like 2/10, and to make that up in that sector is unbelievable. He's absolutely dominant right now. Escaped the rain, had that slide in the portiere there. I'm sure he had his heart in his throat there for a second. But escaped without any damage. Made it through. As you said, Esteban Ocon, fantastic drive, fantastic weekend for Alpine. Let's see what else we got here. My notes. Merc with side pods. So take that design and throw it out the window. We're on to design 2 now. Driver said they felt improvement. Results showed it, but I think it's going to take some time for them to really get their hands on what's going on with the new aerodynamics they're going to have, and the ageless one, Fernando Alonso, taking Aston Martin to just new heights for them. I mean, they were crushed when Max crossed the line in quali. They were crushed in the pit lane there. That crew was crushed because they thought they were going to have pole, but he's taken in places that they've never been before, really. I think that probably was his best shot to get a win this year.
Yeah, he even admitted that a few weeks ago. The team admitted that this was their moment. Monaco was their moment.
Yeah, this is the best shot they had.
And that was by their team's own admission. I mean, you're not. It's not anything accusatory.
No, it's just that they know that everybody knows that they have an inferior car to the Red Bull right now. And Monaco's your shot where all the aero and all that stuff can be thrown out the window a little bit because everybody's kind of more equal because there's no real straightaways. You got one DRS zone, which really doesn't give you that much of an advantage, really, to be honest. It's more about just the driver and full concentration for the entire session and pushing it to the absolute limit, to the millimeter, to get around Monaco. And that's what Monaco's really about. So the cars become more equal at Monaco than at most other tracks. But that was a real shot to get a win. So you could see Red Bull go ahead and go on to win every single race this season, to be honest. Unless there's you never know in racing, things can happen, but right now you really can't see any other way than that right now. Because Max pretty much, once the race started, Max was off and away and gone. He was just picking up time, pushing those tires further than anybody thought they were going to go out in front. Just another impeccable drive, just making those tires last and last and last. And then Red Bull makes the right call at the right time, as they always do, for Max.
Yeah, they did. Red Bull, I think what you're looking at right now and something we're looking at, back, I would say in the early days of Red Bull with Sebastian Vettel when he was dominant. I think the Mercedes years when Lewis Hamilton was dominant. I think you even go back to the Ferrari days when Schumacher was dominant. I think that's what we have here. We have the best car with the best run team at the moment, and you're talking about all the parts, you're talking about the hundreds of people that work in the Red Bull organization
by
to get
far.
those cars going. I'm not talking about just the drivers and just talking about, just the main players that we see on a week-to-week basis and a race-to-race basis. We're talking about everyone in that garage is on the same page. You have probably the best driver in the world. Helmut Marko came out once again and just reiterate. I mean, he's the one who brought him up, but we really, how impressed he was with Max's growth and maturity. We all remember Max 2015, 2016 as a child. He couldn't even have his driver's license in some of the countries that he drove in, and now he's sitting here as a grown man, mature, or more mature, that's for sure. And he's in a situation where the best driver in the best car with the best team, and unless something drastically changes, we're not even looking at this year. We could be looking at a streak of several years. And not, I think, until 2026 when they're going to address or really start addressing some of the physical qualities of the vehicle to create more of that, passing ability. I know there's all kinds of talks about, how the chassis is going to look and all different kinds of ways to increase that ability to pass where we don't have right now. But until there's major drastic changes, until the next generation of cars, in this generation of car as we stand today, I can't imagine Max losing over the next couple of years if everything stays the same. And the only guy that's even going close to him is Fernando Alonso, who's 42 years old, driving a car that had no shot in anyone's mind. This time last year, I would have laughed in your face if you told me Aston Martin was going to be up there against Red Bull this season.
Yeah.
You would have passed out laughing. You would have died like those weasels in Roger Rabbit. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen that flick back in the day.
It's a fantastic movie. It's a brilliant
Stop
film.
laughing.
It's a brilliant
Stop
film.
laughing. You're going to die.
It's a brilliant film.
If you told me Fernando Alonso was going to go, if you told me 5 years ago that in 5 years from now, Fernando Alonso was going to go to Aston Martin and compete against the best teams in the world. I mean, you out of your mind. Even last year, and Alonso was I think fantastic last year, and he's better this year. It's just unbelievable, and it kind of makes Lewis Hamilton and what he's doing. It almost diminishes Lewis Hamilton a little bit. Lewis Hamilton doesn't deserve to be diminished at all. He did finish fourth today. He did not get mentioned in the opening segment, so I will mention him as we close out the opening segment. I did not mention Carlos Sainz, who outside of Yuki Tsunoda lost the most places for non-DNF vehicles this weekend. We haven't talked about him, but I'm sure we'll get to plenty of that. A little more Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Mercedes on the horizon as well. But we got a lot more stuff coming up. I'm probably going to embarrass myself in Quizmaster's cockpit. We got winners. We got losers. I want to slap someone hard this week. I don't know if you're going to take it or I'm going to take it, but both our teams stunk. We're going to get a lot to that, a lot more. Stick around in the Paddock F1. Greeny and the Cheese are back in a flash. Oh, yeah. Greeting the Cheese in the Paddock F1. It's been a hell of a weekend, man. Let me tell you. Those of you who experienced Monaco. Monaco's always a blast. Crazy Indy race for anyone who checked that out as well. All kinds of madness going on this weekend.
See him win the crowd?
Was that?
Did you see that? The dude who won Indy, after he went around after winning the race, parked on the yard of bricks, got out of his car, climbed through the fence, and ran up the stairs, and was partying with the crowd. Never seen anything like it.
I turned it off at the end of the race.
I didn't see anything like
it.
That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Ran right up to the crowd. The crowd was going nuts around him. It was lunacy. Greatest thing was crazy.
Party with the crowd
after. Party with the crowd after.
Hell yeah.
Madness.
That's a Bill Murray move.
Hey, I liked it. Climbed right
quality.
through. Ran up there like a lunatic. Just ran up in there.
It's quality.
It's fantastic.
Quality. You know what else is quality? Quizmaster's cockpit, because I'm sure you're bringing the noise again, trying to stump me once again. I think I'm on like a 7 or 8 quiz losing streak here. Some bad laps. Let's put in a good one for Monaco. Let's get it. I was in a streak at one point. I think I won like 3 or 4 in a row, like 5 out of 6 or something. And it pissed you off, and you took it to the next level, and I haven't been able to get back since. It's probably my fault and not yours. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey, sometimes you just don't poke the bear, sir.
If Baby Yoda is the younger Yoda, you're probably like Daddy Yoda over there with all these questions, because you got let me tell you, these are some tough questions. But I'm looking forward to it. I got my helmet on. I'm ready for race around the track here, and you have 3 questions, so hopefully I have 3 answers. They might not all be right, but I have 3 answers.
Here we go.
Shoot, go.
Sector 1, sir. Who holds the most wins at Monaco? The king.
Well, I mean, the king of Monaco would be Graham Hill, but Graham Hill does not own the most wins. That's Art and Senna with 6.
Well, he is the king of Monaco since he has 6 wins. But that is correct. Very well done, sir. Question 2. A continuation of the question we asked last year.
All right. Like I remember the question from last year.
How many times have we raced at the Monaco Street Circuit in Formula One?
How many times have we raced in the Monaco Street Circuit? I think we didn't race. I think we didn't race only 3 times. Like all time, I think it was 81, but like we're only counting Formula One.
But that goes back to the 20s.
So we're just talking about Formula One.
Yes.
Doing what? Say 72?
Close, 71. But no cigar. Close, 71. But no cigar. Close, but no cigar. 68.
68? Nah, that's not close. Let's do quick math. I don't know how many times we've been to Monaco.
Well, I usually put in the opening, but I didn't this week. So,
it's fair.
Tough noogie. It's fair.
Logical.
You should know
it's a logical choice.
And question 3. How many current drivers have 2 or more wins at the Monaco Street Circuit?
How many current drivers?
Current drivers have
right
2
now.
or more.
Max Verstappen, 20. Max.
Yep, that's 1.
Lewis.
That's 2.
Lewis only has 2, right?
Lewis is 3.
Lewis is 3?
That is correct.
Fernando.
That is correct.
That's your 3.
Those are your 3. Very good, sir. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But if you listen to this program, you know you got to go 3 for 3.
Not good. It's winner, 3 for 3 or not. Although I did get for my birthday. It was my birthday this weekend, and I did get 3 scratch offs. Like lottery, those of you who aren't from the US, you get like these tickets and you take your coin and like a degenerate, you scratch them off. And if you get like matching things, you can get a prize. All right. So I got 3 of them for my birthday. And what you're supposed to do is when you win, you go down and you like let it ride and you get more and you sit there scratching. So anyone who comes to the US and you walk into like a convenience store or a store that might sell lottery tickets and drinks and snacks, and you see a bunch of guys or women or people in the corner scratching off, yeah, that's what they're doing. So anyway, I got 3 scratchies and won them all, 3 for 3. So that's how to win. If I lost one, I would have been disappointed, but I won 3. But tonight I didn't go 3 for 3. I went 2 for 3, and that doesn't count. Which means, sir, and what you're going to say next, we got to go to losers.
We go right into losers. My first loser this week is going to be Sergio Perez, as stated prior segment. Absolute disaster. Disastrous weekend. All around for him. Mess. Title shot, I think, is gone. So it's a massive loss for Sergio this week. Probably not going to be in that seat next year. I hear a lot of grumblings that there's a lot of unhappiness going on that side of the garage at Red Bull. So I don't think Sergio will be there next year. And Ferrari, Carlos Sainz in general, disastrous. Got his derriere up there. A little pit strategy. Onto the podium spots. And then he blew it when the rains came. Made a debacle of it. Putrid. Probably why there's talk that he might not be in that seat coming up here. Just hasn't been performing good enough. Not good enough. And I'll throw one more.
Well,
Lance Stroll.
Just throwing him out. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go. It's all you. No, go ahead. You got half the field already. You took 4 drivers out of losers, which you took 20% of the field is off. But keep going. Give me nothing. It's fine. Let's see who you got, who I got.
Well, I'm giving you something else this week because I know you're hot. You're going
to give me more hot if you don't give me who your next last loser is here.
Well, then go ahead.
No, now I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna go. I think AlphaTauri had a miserable weekend. I'm sure that's where you were going, but they finally had Yuki Tsunoda there in Q3. They had a situation where they could have scored points. They were about to score points, and it all just started falling off. And the wheels started falling off at the end. Yuki lost his S. He just lost his. He lost it. He lost it at the end of that race. He was hot. They were all hot. It was poor communication between the garage and the drivers, and they had a miserable weekend once again when they didn't have to have a miserable ending to a weekend. I'm sorry, not a miserable weekend, because they looked pretty good in practice. Specifically, Yuki Tsunoda was really good at times in quali, and then comes out and just a disaster all the way around. And we talked earlier about how it takes 100 people to get that team right. And any team right in Formula One, not just the drivers and the people you see. And they did a piss poor job this weekend. So AlphaTauri. I had no one else, so I don't know if you had someone else that was not
Lance Stroll.
Tory related.
Lance Stroll.
There you go. And Lance
Stroll. Absolute disaster. Your teammate finishes second, and you just make a mess and a mockery of it all. Yet again.
Again. And that's the problem with Lance Stroll now. He does not look like a Formula One driver. He started showing signs of life last year after a miserable beginning, and now there's no excuse because Aston Martin's car was subpar at best, and I'm being very generous when I say subpar last season. And now, I mean, Fernando Alonso is good. He's not that good that he could drive a junk car and finish second. There's no way. As much as we love Fernando Alonso and most of the Formula One world and racing world loves him as well, there's no way he drives a junk car and finishes with 4 seconds already. Come on. There's no way with a junk car. Yeah. So it's just embarrassing for Lance Stroll. I think a lot of Lance Stroll's errors were covered up last year. But also you saw at the end of the season how Sebastian Vettel came on towards the end of that season. In the second seat. He really came on. I think Aston Martin really started making improvements towards the end of the season. Once again, Sebastian Vettel, as much as you might love him, he's not going to make turn a junk car and start getting points. He was scoring points, and I really think, looking back now, Sebastian Vettel was scoring points in the Aston Martin last year because the car got better after the break. 22.
Yeah. No,
the car got significantly better. But Lance Stroll stinks. You got, once again, you have a guy who should be retired going against a guy who should be in his prime and running circles around him. figuratively and literally. So yeah, he
Yeah.
stinks. So that's enough losers. He really. I mean, at this point, I think outside of his dad just having all the money in this situation,
And owning the team. And owning the
I mean,
team.
it helps when your dad owns the team, but still, you can't have one driver who's podium every week and the other driver who can't get over the finish line. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's the same car.
Yep.
It's the same car. And once is one thing. He should be finishing top 5 every week.
That should be right up there with Fernando. Absolutely. No, 100%. Absolutely.
I mean, you replace 10 guys on the grid with Lance Stroll right now, and you have potentially Aston Martin having at least 2 times where they had 2 podiums, a double podium this year. Absolutely. Yeah. With Fernando having so many podiums this year, you're going to at least have one or 2 times where anyone else on the grid you throw in there. You want to give me Valtteri Bottas? I'll take him. You want to give me Alex Albon? I think Alex Albon could have put that on that Aston Martin on the podium this year. I think Lando Norris could have put that obviously on the podium this year. I'm not going to go crazy and say K-Mag, but there's some guys who could have put second Aston Martin. There's definitely more than a handful of guys that could have put a second Aston Martin on the podium this year, and Lance Stroll's not one of them. That's a good one. All right, you got winners? Any winners this week?
I got some winners. We're going to give it to McLaren. McLaren getting both cars in the points, 9th and 10th.
And where was Zach Brown? He was in the first point out of town.
He was at Indianapolis. Maybe he should stay away. Maybe that's a sign he should stay away. And as we stated before, Esteban, just a brilliant drive from Esteban. The quality and the race put on the podium for Alpine. Massively, massively huge. Massively huge. You got any winners?
Yeah, you know what? I got to give it up for both drivers in the Alfa Romeo. I think Bottas and Zhou had a lot to prove. They had a couple really mediocre weeks, and they put together a really good, not a good weekend. They actually didn't look great in practice. They look like garbage. Both of them out. I think Bottas made Q2, but stunk in Q2. And they had nothing, and they combined with a total of 10 spots gained over the weekend for the team. Zhou started 19th, finished 13th, ended up being the biggest gainer of the weekend, plus 6 spots. He was steady the whole race. He finished, and he's finishing races over and over again. And for a team that was really cuspy this year, like Alfa Romeo, who you didn't know which direction they were going to end up in, they could have scored no points. They didn't have any points this weekend, but to start 19th and 15th and end up 11th and 13th, you got to give it up to them. You're not going to score points every week, but scoring points is not necessarily a victory for every single team every week. So I definitely got to give it up to them. And, I know you mentioned Ocon, but Pierre Gasly as well. He quietly had a very good weekend all around. I definitely think he had a very good weekend, coming in 7th at the end. And, if I'm going to give it, to Gasly, I have to give it to Mercedes for the weekend. The only thing I'm disappointed about and confused about a little bit is Toto Wolff's attitude afterwards. He was really satisfied with a 4th and 5th, which is great, but I think Mercedes could have done better than a 4th and 5th this weekend. I think they had opportunity to get in front of Ocon at several points and get on the podium. But still, 4th and 5th is good, very good, especially the season Mercedes is having. And I think they're really going to be able to open it up in Spain. They really missed some opportunities here for their upgrades, and I think they could really open it up in Spain and show some pizzazz. Which leaves us, sir, to only one thing. Unless you have any more other winners up your sleeve here.
Nick DeVries finishing 12th.
All right. Starting 12th, finishing 12th.
Marco came on and said he better start improving, or he ain't going to be driving that car no more. So, let's put up a shut-up time. He's been pretty bad. But 12th place at Monaco, it's a pretty good finish. We'll put him in the winners this week.
Ooh, that's a first winner for Nick DeVries. Big day for him. Yeah. Which only leaves us with one last thing, sir.
I need to slap my goddamn self for that.
Someone's gonna slap their goddamn self. And you were there with me. We got to watch the race together, and it just shocks sometimes what Haas does. It's just a shock at how incompetent this team was. If you got 20 drivers driving around and it starts to rain, and within 3 minutes, 19 of those vehicles are on intermediates, and one of them stays on the hard tires, and that's Nico Hulkenberg. It was like my grandma who gets caught in the snow. Like, you ever been like out shopping and you look out and you're like, oh man, it's snowing. This is gonna be a junk ride home. And you gotta get home and you're just going sideways. You're just like praying for your life. It's just like, what are you doing? You've either been there or seen people do that, right? You're just like, look at this guy. You're just going sideways. Yeah, that was Nico Hulkenberg. Except there's not usually a billion people watching you when you're doing it. All right? It's embarrassing when like one person sees you when you're doing it. You've been there. You live in the northeast of the U.S. It snows. It gets slippery. And you look like a jackass. Not in front of everyone. I mean, if that would have been a solo YouTube video, if that was down someone's driveway, seen them all the time too. Look those up, sliding down your driveway or sliding down the road. And then he gets in, he crashes the car right outside of the pit lane, goes in the pit lane, and then the team has no idea that he needs a new front wing. He needed a new front wing, and they had no idea. So like, oh yeah, like it's your only job. Switch the tires. I mean, the guy just busted his front wing. And they put him on wets, and they go back in for intermediates again. I mean, it's insane. And after all that K-Mags that DNFs, just a head scratcher. That's your drivers can only do so much out there. They're not changing the tires. They're not making these calls. Stink. It's absolute stink. And I'm going to go take this 30-second break, and I'm going to go vomit. I'd be just thinking about it and how much faith I had in this Haas team. I'd be massively disappointed. Could be worse. I could be a Ferrari fan, which is equally disappointing.
No, not even close.
Deep and utter incompetence. It's one thing to not drive well. It's a whole totally other thing to just have massive incompetence from the top down. And I'd be embarrassed. Okay? This isn't a joke anymore. I know you have all your fun and your laughs on Drive to Survive and all that other junk. But those who spend money on the Haas product and watch in time and effort, and I'm the fool. I'm the fool. And on that note, stick around. We got Greeny Bucks coming up any moment. As long as Chief survives, I'm passing out and dying laughing over here. Greeny the Cheese in the paddock, everyone. You all right over there, buddy? We're back into this.
Oh, yes. You know that sound mean, boys and girls. It's time for us to take that fantasy ride to that fantasy island of Greentopia, where the beer flows like wine and the wine flows like beer. And the cannabis grows as far as the eye can see. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Green and luscious. Take a little whiff. That air smells fantastic. Take a little walk up to the top of the hill to that casino in the sky. Are we cashing in or are we checking out?
Fantastic. Fantastic. We're both going back to even, and I think we're both hopeful We both had Max for the win, which I think was obvious. Once again, pretty easy call. So we both cashed in on that. Obviously, not a big cash in because it's Max, and Max is expected to win every race. We both ended up with Checo, which I think was a logical choice for biggest gainer. I mean, I don't think anyone was getting, Guan Yu Zhou was the biggest gainer, but maybe we were wrong. Maybe we were looking in the wrong. I mean, but if I had to pick, straight up an Alfa Romeo over a Red Bull, I mean, where I'm going to pick every time. So I think it was a logical choice. Didn't pan out. Zhou ended up with the biggest gainer. Bottas ended up second biggest gainer with Sergio, both +4, but no dice on that one. And then the interesting trifectas. I went with Fernando Alonso for the win, Max for second, Hamilton for third, which actually wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. I was pretty closer than you, who had Max in first. You nailed that. Alonso in second. You nailed that. Carlos Sainz in third, which, sir, you need to chill out with the Ferraris. But
you know what? If he didn't screw up and crash his car like a buffoon and spit it out, he had the podium in hand. But he's a jackass.
Somebody owes you some
There you
greedy
go
bucks.
with that.
Somebody owes you a couple greedy bucks, huh?
Somebody might have a job soon if you don't start picking it up. So
after
might be asking somebody for greedy bucks.
So after a roaring start for myself, I have come all the way back down to earth, and I now have a negative ROI for the season. Slightly negative, but a negative ROI. You still have a positive ROI, slightly positive, and a 300 greeny buck difference as we head into Spain. So we'll see what happens there. Still way too close to call. Very unlike the Formula One season, which is getting completely out of hand. It's more like your Greeny Bucks 21, where I ended up with nothing and you ended up doubling your cash. But it was like a wipeout. Still have scars from that one.
Oh man,
Still have scars. Anyway, we of course have, as we always do, finishing up strong with Life in the Fast Lane, the fastest 3 minutes in all of Formula One podcast. Sir, I'll ask you 10 questions, and hope you have 10 answers. If you are ready.
I'm always ready. Let's do this.
Then without further ado,
cue the music.
Your time starts now. Max Verstappen wins Monaco on Sunday, but the race was really won with a fantastic Q3 on Saturday. Is quali in Monaco the real gem of the F1 calendar?
Maybe. It could be. That's pretty much the best part of the weekend is the qualifying, because you can't really – this passing is very hard at Monaco, especially with the size of the new cars and such. But could be. Next.
Fernando Alonso dealt with and overcame a dozen or so obstacles to come in second in Monaco. Was this Fernando Alonso's most impressive race of 2023?
That was a fantastic drive. Could be. A lot of obstacles to overcome this week. It could be. Next.
Esteban Ocon had an epic weekend all weekend. Is Esteban Ocon the only one keeping Alpine relevant in 2023?
I don't think so. I think since the changes with the upper part of the team, they're trying to set a new culture. It takes a little time to build that. I think they're on like a 5-year plan, really. So it's a good start. It's a darn good start for him.
George Russell blows a podium opportunity, but Toto and crew satisfied with a P4, P5 for Mercedes. Are you satisfied with Mercedes' complacency now that they're not in competition for the Drivers' Championship?
Absolutely not. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing hard and trying to get as much as you can. So I don't like the complacency. Next.
Red Bull has won every race this season. Which team or driver, if any, can win a race that is not Red Bull in 2023?
Fernando Alonso is probably the best chance. Maybe Charles Leclerc. If Ferrari, doesn't screw something stupidly up, which they're known to do right now. Next.
Speaking of Charles Leclerc still can't buy a win at his home track. Where could Charles Leclerc finish if Ferrari was more prepared for the weekend? Or where could have he finished?
Fourth, fifth, maybe. It's hard to maneuver in Monaco. Next.
Sergio Perez in his 16th place finish dashes any hope of a driver's championship for this season. If Checo doesn't finish second at the end of the year, who might?
Fernando. He's the only other real guy getting those podiums right now, so definitely Fernando.
Mercedes was not able to show off its upgrades as they wished, with Imola canceled and Monaco being a difficult venue. Is there a podium on the horizon in Spain for either Russell or Hamilton?
Could be. We'll see what these upgrades do when they get to track on Friday. It's hard to predict right now without seeing the car on, a real circuit.
All right. Well, we got through 9 questions. It's not bad. You want to hear the last question we got here? A Red Bull employee has come under fire for redirecting Sky Sports' Martin Brundle from getting too close to the Red Bull drivers on the grid, on the grid walk. Do drop an F and an S bomb live on air for the whole world to see. Funny situation, or as those online are saying, disgusting incident.
A funny situation. I mean, this guy isn't, working for TV. He's just working his job. We're keeping away from the car. Guy's cursed. We're racing. Relax. Calm down. Relax.
Amazing. Well, sir, another great week, another great weekend. Where are we heading next?
Spain next week. 1 week. Next weekend. Let's do it.
Be
bumping with Fernando fans next week, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, this was the 3 in a row. We only have 2 in a row, but we have 3 in a row. Spain, not just one Spanish driver. We have 2. We have another Spanish driver who might hopefully show a little better than Carlos Sainz. So the Spanish drivers in the spotlight, 6 days away from the Spanish Grand Prix and 4 days away from the weekend. We will see you in 6 days. Say what you got to say, brother.
I was seeing Spain, and as always, stay medicated, my friends.
Peace.